Hey everybody, this is Harvey Sunny Wasserman back for the 259th Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition Zoom call. We are in a world in chaos. I don't have to tell you. We're also on daylight savings time, which really threw us even into even more chaos. But my God, who could even? I think if you wrote a novel about a world in this state, no one would believe it. But we're in the middle of well, let's start with the middle of it. Hetty and Jonathan, Hetty Trip, Jonathan Kent, you are in Minneapolis, Minnesota, where ICE has been running rampant. Everybody knows what's been going on. You are there. You're in a cafe. I hope that ICE doesn't come pouring into the cafe and beat everybody up like happened in Chicago in
We
'68.
will.
But you've just been offered a piece of cheesecake. It'd be very impolite for you to eat that without sharing it with everyone. So, Hetty and Jonathan, can you tell us, please, give us the latest from Ground Zero, Minneapolis? What's been happening?
Okay, so this is HEDY TRIP. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, you're good.
Yeah, so I'm in Minneapolis, and Jonathan has joined me here because he is on the ground. I'll be back in St. Cloud and reporting from there, but I've asked him that, to come on the calls at any time, and you are free to connect with him. But right now, I think ICE is here to stay. In my grandson's school, there are still a significant number of kids that are not coming to school because families are really scared. Uh, and so there are still patrols around the school by parents. And parents are also part of the whole mutual aid piece. Yesterday, there was a huge march, right? Women's march, but also an anti-ICE was, if you can talk to that.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks, Hetty, and thank you, everyone, for allowing me back. It's a privilege to be on air again and in solidarity with everyone. So, yes, yesterday in Powderhorn Park, which is, I would say, a liberal bastion, progressive stronghold, if you will, um, from time immemorial. But there was Women's Day March, specifically timed to uplift migrant women in particular, women in leadership, celebrate the rich history in the state and in the country and really in the world. And amongst the speakers, there were some, I would say, bona fide heavy hitters. Nikema Levy-Pound, who you may recognize that name, was unfortunately part of recent Department of Justice persecution. And she is a longtime civil rights advocate, a lawyer herself, very strong leader locally.
We would love to have her on this if we can.
Yeah, I bet she would do it. I mean,
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so we could.
And what is her name?
Nikema Levy
Armstrong.
I said Pound. I don't know why.
Nikema Armstrong. Okay.
Yeah, Nekima Armstrong, and she's been on the front lines of any number of issues around police brutality. She's a force to be reckoned with for sure.
She was arrested in the church that had a pastor who was actually an ICE leader.
That was the Don Lemon incident, if you will, and I should remember the other.
And then and she was arrested.
Yeah. So they've been since vindicated, and just their treatment has been awful.
So she was speaking.
Yep, she was speaking, and then there was also there were a host of other people who.
Well, at this rally, was there an ICE presence?
No, not that. No, I think the bottom line is they have
stopped doing en masse attacks, but they have gone underground. They've been using like puffer jackets and not masks, but they're bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Slave hunters, whatever you might call it.
Police there, like Minneapolis Park Police, they're pretty, like, they keep a distance. Their standard approach is they have a drone that will follow, like we did a march. And so that part is, like, you never really know what they do with that.
Right.
And then I just noticed there's I would say, I don't want to say cordial, but like a respectful kind of implied distance. They just kind of let the organizers do their thing. So
the park police.
ICE.
Who Who manages the park police? The city, the county?
City of Minneapolis. City of
Okay.
Minneapolis, yeah.
Okay.
And sometimes, like at Whipple, it has been a lot of
This
Hennepin
is
County
the
Sheriff.
detention center that I talked about last week.
Yes.
Right. The
Yes.
one that had like the 38 arrests. That was Hennepin County Sheriff's group. Yeah.
So they are not wearing masks because that law came into being, but they are still present. So that's where we are, Sunny.
So how do people feel day to day? I mean, there must be still tremendous tension. Are they breaking into people's houses and arresting people in their houses? And what about Target and Costco and the workplaces? Are they still picking up people at the workplaces?
Not that we know, not that I know, but they're sending like female agents into mom groups to help with the food distribution. They're posing as what they call Alleluia Latinos to knock on doors to spread the gospel, and agents come up in the rear. Yeah. And then they're not in Twin Cities hotels anymore because there've been a lot of noise making by
Wide Awake campaign.
but they've gone to Wisconsin and they've gone to neighboring towns.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
my
they've
God.
gone underground. Yeah.
It's a less visible presence here.
Because they know it doesn't work.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't work.
They've had to adjust their tactics, and I would say, unfortunately, to Hedy's point, like they're hiring from within communities. It's a classic, tactic, getting people who look and kind of speak like the communities
speaking
that they're
Spanish
persecuting.
and so on.
So it's getting worse, or what do I say? Like it's like
it's getting underground, but it's still there. So that's where we are.
They're being more.
You don't have the guys walking around in their Gestapo uniforms with their face masks, but they are.
In part, there's like a proactive legal battle. The Hennepin County attorney has, I think, 14 cases. So I think the fact that there's very serious legal action being taken is really putting a chill on or pause.
Chill.
Yeah, sorry, I should. but really like a pause on how overt it is.
Right.
They've had to scale it back.
And
even like Kristi Noem being like that whole deal is just.
Jesus.
Okay. I hope you guys
can. America. Yes, I got it, Mike. This is America. Right. We have a secret police, a little more secret than before. Right. Has Kristi Noem been out shooting dogs or no?
But she's been. Hasn't she been promoted, Sonny? Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, she's
now on the Mar-a-Lago wait staff.
You guys know much better.
Hey, Sonny, we need to co-host.
Yes, okay.
Melissa
Hey, you guys.
and Joel
Hedy and Jonathan, thank you so much. Come back next week. We really appreciate your reports. Melissa Bird, I don't know if you're on yet, but we do have Joel, who's going to, Joel Rubin. Mike Hirsch, can you please introduce it? Thank you, guys, and enjoy that cheesecake. Okay, thank you. Come again next week. Hedy, great. Thank you so much. And let's hope that things continue to die down at least a little bit in Minneapolis. Okay, we have Joel Rubin now. Mike Hurst, you want to introduce Joel Rubin? Melissa Bird and Anna Georgia, you're in the wings, but Joel is going to give us a report from the Middle East. Joel, you're with us. How are the Epstein files playing out in Tehran?
Hey, Sonny, if I could really quickly introduce Joel. Okay.
Go ahead, Joel.
Joel's smiling face should be familiar to people who watch CNN, MS Now, various other news outlets, want to be well informed. Joel is a recognized expert by people on the center, left, and right on the Middle East and foreign affairs. He held an important Assistant Secretary of State post under the Obama administration. He ran for Congress in my own state of Maryland, and it's really too bad he didn't win. We'd be better off if he had. I know that Joel only has about 10 minutes with us, so I'm going to wrap up the intro and turn it over to you, Sonny and Joel, to let us know what's going on in Iran.
Thank you, Mike, for bringing him. Joel, we have 70 people. We're live on YouTube, and your smiling face will be later on the radio. So,
all right,
please. Okay.
Hey, Sonny, thank you. Mike, really appreciate you doing this. And I apologize for the brevity. We have a mother-in-law 85th birthday party tonight that I have to head out to in a little bit. So celebrating 85 for my mother-in-law. Um, Look, guys, I'll try to cut to the chase real quick. We are in a revolutionary moment in American foreign policy. Um, we have never had a president acting in an unconstrained manner like we've had in Donald Trump when it comes to the use of military force abroad. What this means is that as Democrats were challenged significantly because legally and structurally, this president is pushing, as I'm sure you know better than anybody, as you were talking about just a moment ago, pushing the legal bounds of all of his authorities. But then B, there are real serious, complex policy discussions and issues related to the places where we are attacking that have a variety of stakeholders and history tied to them. And it all faces the danger of getting swept up, politically swept up, and sort of the politics taking over everything on the policy. So I'll just take a minute or two more. Happy to answer questions if that works for you, Mike. But like, just I'm trying to talk about some of the policy issues consistently in the media and the left and the right, because the politics are so fraught. And so, what my ask to everyone here is to both keep an eye on the politics and also keep an eye on the policy, because this policy can shift and move, and the politics around it too, as well. And the policy, how we got here, why are we at war with Iran right now, is because we were set on this path by a couple of key factors. One, President Obama, when I served in the Obama administration, I was in the Legislative Affairs Bureau. Prior to that, I worked as an advocate for nuclear diplomacy with Iran at the Plowshares Fund, earlier at J Street as well. President Obama recognized that we would be in a situation that we're in currently over a decade ago. So he said, I'm going to cut a nuclear deal with Iran because they cannot be allowed to have a weapon. And if they are constrained, that will be in our interest. But we can't go to war for that because there will be significant costs tied to that war. And it was again in the post-Iraq period, the Afghanistan war was still ongoing. And so he made a decision to compromise at the table to constrain the nuclear program, shrink it, control it, and verifiably ensure that they would not get a nuclear weapon. A highly unsatisfying endgame to a variety of folks, and only a third of Congress basically supported it, but the best decision at that time, and frankly, one that I think would have carried us peacefully through to this day. Donald Trump, however, ran on a platform that included ripping up that deal and used that effectively, which, by the way, I'll just say, I don't know why anybody considered him to be the anti-war candidate. He really triangulated well against us, quite frankly. He has always been a hawk on Iran. So moving forward in 2018, he ended that deal, uh, essentially allowing Iran to restart its nuclear program, but they were cautious for a couple of years, with Europe still in the deal. Then he struck the head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, Qasem Soleimani. No major Iranian response, a lot of back and forth, but Iran is not in the deal. Then he was voted out. Joe Biden took office. Joe Biden tried to renegotiate with Iran to get back in the deal, and Iran basically said no. They wanted the Obama deal back, but they had made advances because they were out. So it was very hard policy wise. It was back and forth. I remember this from the first couple of years of Biden. And then October 7th happened. And that shook up everything. And that really pulled back the diplomacy between the US and Iran on the nuclear deal. And then Trump comes into office, essentially arguing that he'll cut a better deal, which, of course, as we all know, he did not. So now we're in the situation where a couple months ago, really in early January, people came out to protest. They were mowed down by the thousands. by the Iranian regime. And Trump said, like he's wont to do, he spouted off and he said, help is on the way. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, and this is during a nuclear negotiation that was sort of going in fits and starts, we send an armada out to the Gulf. And I served in the State Department earlier in my career in military affairs when we invaded Iraq. I was a civil servant, and that stuck with me, that whole experience. It sort of pushed me into the political world. I worked on the Hill for Senate Democrats after leaving the State Department before going into advocacy and then back into Obama. Basically, we then stuck forces there, and you could feel the clock ticking. And you add to that, then, of course, the Israeli pressure, which is nothing to sneer at. It's real, but that's persistent. It's not been anything different from what we've had, frankly, for decades. But this president I really had a sort of a leaning, a bending towards military action towards Iran. And so he took it. The Israelis and the United States struck. We are now in a situation where massive amount of hardware has been decimated. The Iranian Navy is essentially neutralized. Their missile production, which was the major threat to the region, you see the missiles coming out, but they've been significantly reduced. Their launchers have been reduced as well. And those are all tactical military victories. But they are hitting soft targets in the region. They have a massive arsenal of drones. The drones also were they exported to the Russians to kill Ukrainians a few years ago, and the Ukrainians developed counter drone technology. So all that's happening. So now we're in this military fight, right? Also, a dozen Arab countries, Middle Eastern countries were hit by the Iranians. They're very angry at the Iranians. They're not opposed to the Israeli action. And we have no real game plan for the end state. And the Iranians have named a new supreme leader who may, quite frankly, not have a long shelf life based upon the way he's being described. So all that is underway. Last thing I'll say, massive humanitarian concerns. Tens of thousands of Americans have left the region. I did an interview this morning actually with NBC. The planning was ham-handed, and we did not. I've worked at state when we evacuated people and worked on this, and they didn't do the planning before it. So there's a lot of that, but fortunately, no Americans have died in the crossfire yet that we're aware of. So all that now leads us to the moment. And Congress essentially has all Democrats opposing this, not
Except
able to
Fetterman.
pass
Except
legislation.
Fetterman.
Except for Fetterman. And there was a trade. There was Rand Paul for Fetterman, right?
Right.
And then in the House, you had 4 Democrats opposing a war powers resolution that would have called for the withdrawal of American armed forces from the region. Neither
So the
passed.
question then is, the back question is,
now I'm done. Yeah.
yes,
I
you're
forever.
terrific, Joel. Thank you very much. I don't mean to interrupt. I know you have to
No.
run. The back question, the other dimension question is, how much did Trump's decision to attack Iran have to do with the Epstein files and the imminent release of this one story, this Susie, I think it's Thompson story, who claims when she was 13 that he raped her. There is a tape going around the internet that's very, very powerful. Oh my God. I mean, I was actually blown away by it. How much did the timing and the substance of this attack on Iran not have anything to do with Iran at all, but have to do with his domestic situation?
Well, this is where I hate to say, I'm going to stick to my policy lane because I don't know. But what I will tell you, Sonny, I'm sorry, I'm not satisfying. But what I will tell you is that this is not popular domestically, right? Like, move the Epstein thing to the side. Just the polls are underwater.
Yeah,
The
way
gas
underwater.
price spiking is occurring, so there will be more pain. Uh, you know, I guess this is popular at some level somewhere for him, but I don't think this was I don't think this is a look. Let me see this. The national security strategy that was released several months ago listed American dominance of the Western Hemisphere as our primary objective as a hegemonic power here, and kind of leave Europe to Russia and leave Asia to China, simply to put it simply. It said the word Iran 3 times. Like the Middle East was fourth on the list. This is not part of our national security strategy, what's happening right now. So I think in many ways it's like the gut instinct, and that could then you could go into the Epstein thing if you so desire. But I just this is not like a popular war that had a lot of groundwork. And I was going on TV for several months saying he's got to come to Congress. There has to be a plan for the day after. You can't have the country implode. If it's useful to get rid of this regime, let's just say it's a good idea. The people of Iran have suffered for 47 years. The region has suffered as well. You have to really make sure you do it effectively, and do it in a way that works. And nobody's seen anything that gives them that confidence. So I'm trying to be very,
Okay.
be inclusive in my language. But I do think if he was doing this to score domestic political points, this would not have been high up on the.
But it's the theory is, and of course, it's widespread, that we have had another 50 pages come out from the FBI. This stuff is really powerful.
Crazy.
This is a first-person interview with a woman who was 13, and I've seen the tape. She's extremely credible. So, and it's the most damning stuff I have ever heard. I mean, it's absolutely riveting and horrifying. How much of this war is because of her?
Do you
It's hard to
remember?
know.
You remember the wag the dog, and I saw someone put wag
Yes,
the
of
dog.
course.
And when President Clinton hit Sudan in 1998, ostensibly to hit Al Qaeda, and we ended up hitting just a regular pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. It was like a strike, and it was over. I seriously hope that we're not wagging the dog with 30,000+ American troops and bombing in the thousands right now. Like, not a pinprick. If it's a wag,
No, but
it's
they're
a wag,
they're
wag
talking.
the wag the German Shepherd dog. I don't know. This is a big war.
This is a big one. They're laying the foundation for boots on the ground by positing the idea that they'll have to go in and get that uranium. That, when he bombed that facility, the uranium is still there, the enriched uranium. And that is the groundwork that I see them laying and say, oh, well, we got to go in and get that stuff. That stuff is lethal, by the way. If anybody starts to move that stuff, they're going to get irradiated and they're going to die. So, do you see that at all in the picture?
I think the uranium question. So the bombing in June set back the ability to
Right.
use and weaponize and certainly damage their nuclear infrastructure significantly. But the enriched uranium still exists, and it may very well require human beings from us or the Israelis to go on the ground to
They'll
obtain.
never get it. They'll
And,
never
and,
get
the,
it, and it's lethal. They cannot move that stuff.
and the other X factor question is will we end up cutting a deal with some kind of Delcy Rodriguez figure there? But I'm not sure the Iranians are in the mood for
No.
that.
I
So
will add one thing for your deep background, but this is for you going forward. You're going on TV. In 1979, just before the Shah was overthrown, they cut a deal. The Shah's government cut a deal with Framatome, the French reactor manufacturer, and he signed on for 36 atomic reactors. Can you imagine this situation in Iran if Iran had 36 atomic reactors?
well, it was a different Iran, right?
Yes, but I'm just telling you, we're seeing the reactors in you, and we always have a
Yeah.
dimension on this call.
Well,
We're seeing the reactors in Ukraine now, where Putin has been hitting the infrastructure, supporting the atomic reactors, and there was a UN resolution telling him not to do that, and the U.S. Trump voted against that resolution.
so you're bringing up the core reason why the negotiations failed a week and a half ago. The different visions on what Iran should and should not have. The Iranians basically said they want They wanted what they got in the Obama deal. That's basically their position, maybe a little less. And Trump said, I'm not Obama, and you can't have anything. And the Iranians are never going to give that all up. And that's the fundamental crash.
Right.
So this idea, if they had nuclear infrastructure and they could grow it, they were prohibited from that for a series of years in the Obama deal. But that was also a critique that it would not necessarily be permanent. So Trump said, get rid of it all. But to your point, getting rid of it all will require probably more effort on the ground.
Boy, that if they go in to get uranium, that's the end of the world as we know it. It's an impossibility. We're joined by Andrea Miller. Andrea, it's great to have you. We're going to get to you in a minute or two.
I got to jump, guys.
It's really great to have you. We got some hands real quick. Steve,
yeah. I'll take 1 minute or two. Hi, Andrea.
Okay. And give our best to your mother-in-law. I'm 80, but so there you go. Go ahead, Steve Caruso.
Look good.
And then Andrea, you'll join us, please. Steve?
Yeah, I just wonder how much pre-positioning they had before Trump got elected, because Eric Prince is on one of the social apps, I think it was WhatsApp, coordinating El Salvador beforehand, before even Trump got into office. Trump was always talking to Putin. I mean, how much of that is legal and in accordance with the Hatch Act? Of course, nobody else would have done that but Trump. And all this stuff in the background was all put in motion prior. And now they have this national, Russia gets this part of the world, China, what does China get? I don't know. United States gets South America and that whole thing. And this is what they're doing. They're going for it. They're not going to stop unless somebody puts the foot in the door. So, and
Okay.
what's the door?
Your finger on
Thanks.
Yes. Go ahead. Did you want, okay, MYLA RESON, go ahead.
So
MYLA?
it's now been confirmed that it was a tomahawk missile that did kill all of those schoolgirls. Trump's been denying it, but we do know that the tomahawk missile technology is so advanced that they really can pinpoint a target. And the question is, was AI faulty intelligence that led to the elementary school with all of those precious young girls being murdered?
There's a real, I'm glad you brought that up. So they may, not to sound crass, but they may very well fit the target. The target might just have been outdated because there was an IRGC facility near there, which is horrifying, which goes to, well, how was the targeting done? Was it verified by humans or is it all AI? I do think those are the right questions. I hope there's an investigation. I frankly think for our military service members, they also deserve that kind of assessment so that they don't have that happen again. But yeah, it's
Horrifying. Beyond, I have 5 daughters. I mean, it's just, come on, really. Well, where does this end, Joel? Before you end, we go to Andrea Miller.
No, look, Trump's going to China March 31st for meetings with Xi. I don't think we go into that meeting still at war. I'm not sure how it ends. I'm not sure the Iranians will end it, but I think that's the sort of milestone. And I think this is, but I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm omnipotent, but I think I think they're going to declare some level of victory. And then, of course, the big screw job of the Iranian people happens. So, then they're stuck with a regime that's angry and may want to advance, or may. I don't know. I think that's the timelines that we're looking at this.
So instead of the Iranians having an 85-year-old awful dictator, now they have a 45-year-old awful
56,
dictator.
56.
56. It's just sad.
For today, but if the Israelis have anything to do with it, he may not be around much longer. There's so many X factors in this war; it's out of control, and that is the call I'm getting from.
Okay, buddy. Thank you, Joel. We have 80 people.
Here.
You come back sometime. We appreciate your expertise.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Take care very much. Okay, Andrea Miller, can you wait a minute? We've got Melissa Bird with us. Go ahead, Melissa. Can you give us the report for Oregon? Then we're going to go to the great Andrea Miller. You're in good company. Do you
I
have
actually
any?
want to talk about, yes, report from Oregon, but want to talk a bit about Iran and something that's come up here just as I'm running my race. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Melissa Bird. I'm running for Congress in Oregon's 4th Congressional
Okay.
District. And I want to talk a bit about APAC. APAC is coming up a lot in the chat. And these APAC donations are not a coincidence with how, especially with our Democratic leaders in Congress. And so I think it's really important to keep continuing to talk about the APAC money because of what's happening with the United States and Israel. But I wanted to talk a little bit. My husband was a forward observer in the Army and served 2 tours of duty. And one of the things that I also think needs to be a part of this conversation is when Secretary Hegseth said that rules of engagement are stupid. What Secretary Hegseth was saying is exactly why we were able to bomb that school, because rules of engagement would determine that forward observer's whole entire job when they're determining the target is to minimize civilian casualties. That's the purpose of rules of engagement are to keep our military service members safe and to minimize citizen casualties. And so what we are seeing with this war in Iran is because Secretary Hegseth took that out by saying we will not be using rules of engagement in this war, they basically were showing us all that the intent is actually to maximize casualties as much as possible. And I think it's also really important to remember that our military service members are going to be veterans when they come home. And we are cutting the VA services. There was just a whole chunk of doctors and nurses fired from the VA last week, while we are creating a whole new bunch of troops that are going to need those services. So it's not just about the bombing, and it's not just about this terrible partnership that we are in right now with Israel. It's also about the fact that we have thrown out the rules of war and we are just going full bore into something that has no constraint.
Right. And I
And
want to point out
policy perspective, that is critical.
your point about new veterans is extremely on point. After the 4-day Iraq war, right? As you remember, we went in, it was a 4-day war. 250,000 American veterans were disabled.
Yeah.
You know, it was all about Gulf War syndrome and whatever it was. But the burden from that brief war, and this has been way more than 4 days, that burden from that brief war, we're still paying for in the hundreds of millions.
Yeah, my husband's one of those Iraq war veterans.
Right.
And
So that's a very, very good point.
I think it's really important as we are talking about Iran, this war, we have to talk about the casualties because Pete Hegseth blatantly said rules of engagement are stupid. It's going to put our military service members at risk, and it's why we're going to see a lot more civilian targets there in Iran.
And I will say, as a historian, that the other historical reality of this war is that never has the United States gone into a war with such incredible, incompetent leadership. These people are completely unqualified. At least when we used to go into our horrible, unjustified wars, the guys knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
These guys have no idea what they're doing. It's embarrassing, actually. So anyway, Melissa, you want to make a point about APAC, and then we're going to run to Andrea Miller. So please.
Yeah, I mean, I think my point about APAC, and someone put track APAC in that link in the comments. I think it's really important to be paying attention to the number of Congress people who have been bought and sold by APAC, including my opponent. And so we need to be paying attention in these elections that are coming, all these primary elections. People need to be paying attention to who is running and where their money is coming from if we don't want to see this continue.
Okay, very good. What's ICE doing in Oregon right now?
Well, we very successfully have gotten confirmation. It just hit later last week that ICE will not be putting a facility in Newport, Oregon. And then we had a county commissioner in Coos County reach out to ICE and offer them a hotel.
Oh my God.
And the backlash was huge from the community. And so that is also not happening. So very happily, we are very successfully pushing back against ICE on the coast. So
they're not staying in Motel 6?
They're not staying anywhere right now.
All right. Good for
Yeah.
you. Thank you,
Thank you.
Melissa Bird. Keep that up. And I don't know where Mayor Heidi is. If you see Mayor Heidi, let her tell her we miss her. Okay, thank you so much. Lynn, Andrea Miller, can we go to you, or do you want to take a call from Lynn Finerman?
You can, oh, Lynn can go first. And
Lynn,
then,
go ahead, please. Lynn, go
yeah,
ahead.
go ahead, Lynn.
Finerman.
Thank you. I came in a bit late, so maybe you
Okay.
went over this, but there is a very heavy indoctrination process going on in the US military. Numerous of the high military officials have been dismissed because they wouldn't go along with this crap. And the kids who are going there, you know, to come back among the 250,000 or whatever, are being indoctrinated that they're going there for Jesus, and that Jesus has anointed this idiot in the White House. This is something that we really, really need to look at, because it is really what's going on there. It's a kind of Israeli and US collusion in a crusade. And and it's a money-making crusade. It makes an amazing amount of money. And a lot of that money, according, just to get back to what Melissa was saying, is recycled, because Israel gets that money and then they recycle it to the Congress to buy it.
Right. Okay, that's good points. Well, you know, if you'll go back and read the Sermon on the Mount, you see that Jesus advocated perpetual war. That's according to the MAGA version of the King James Bible. So,
yeah, ridiculous.
But anyway, I just, you know, mystified. Thank you so much, Lynn, for that. Andrea Miller, we about a year ago did a special website for election protection. You're looking puzzled. So was I. I forgot all about it, but it is there. It's www.usgrassroots.org, and it's a potential, a great. It's in my. I put it in the invitation. It's a great potential resource, and that, you know, one of the imperatives, of course, of the coming 26 election is we got to protect it. I did invite Ray Lutz on. I don't know if he's on with us, but we need to revisit that website, usgrassroots.org, and really fire up our apparatus to protect this election. And we've gotten plenty of notice from Steve Bannon and Donald Trump and the rest of them, Stephen Miller, that they do not intend. You know, there's all this talk about him canceling the 26th election. I don't think he's not going to be able to cancel the 26th election, but they do intend clearly to disenfranchise as many women as possible, as many citizens of color as possible. And we need to revisit, you and I will need to revisit that website. Everybody, there it is, the People's Hub for Grassroots. Now it says 24 on it. Well, we got to update to 26. But this was useful in the 24 campaign.
Right. We are not working on that website. We turned it over to you. We don't maintain that. That's
well, we don't. Well, I can maintain it, but we need to work it, because there's a lot of resource in there. So next week we're going to take it apart, see what's usable, and let's come up with a campaign. You, Ray McClendon, Ray Lutz, to really very specifically focus on what we need to protect in November. I mean, you know, we didn't, never was there discussed really. We're always talking about the disenfranchisement of people of color. They're never discussing disenfranchisement of women. And that's the real target now, because if your maiden name is different from your married name, you may not get to vote. This is a real consideration, and I'm sure that you've thought of, Andrea. But
well, it also impacts poor rural white people probably even more. Number one, if you are poor and you are living rural, and you're a woman, there probably is no local place where you can just go and get a passport. Small post offices don't do passports, only the big ones. Libraries no longer do passports. So it's really going to be tricking. I was going to be talking about the ugly, nasty chicanery that we are seeing here in Virginia from Republican operatives now just trying to trick Black voters. They've kind of given up on disenfranchising them in um, Virginia, or at least for the time being. And Republicans, at least in Virginia and probably in other places, have realized how powerful the Black vote is. So they realized if we can't stop it, then what we're going to need to do is trick it. I want to share my screen and
Yes,
show
please.
you what got sent to all the Black vote by mail voters in our rural counties in it's kind of South Central Virginia.
Okay, and we
So
got
I
a
think
hand from
everybody
John
on this
Steiner.
call.
John, do you want to jump in now? Or do you want to wait for Andrea to do her show here? John Steiner?
John.
Harvey, I just wanted to say hi, Andrea. There are a lot of folks out there working on these issues. And I think we need to find out who's there and what they're doing and what we have to add and kind of synergize with.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we'll talk about this, and we'll do the next week. I want to devote at least the first hour to election protection. All these specifics, we'll get Ray McClendon with us, Ray Lutz. I do want to mention one thing, Andy, before you jump in, just to make sure we don't let it go by. There was a piece in the New York Times, and it's going around now. The Supreme Court, thankfully, has failed to gut the Voting Rights Act, which means that all the districting, the gerrymandering that the Republicans wanted to do to get rid of the Black represented congressional districts, they may not be able to do. There's a couple of states, Florida and one other in the South, that they may get away with. But because the Supreme Court has been laggard in doing what we expected it to do, the gerrymandering may not be as bad in 26 as we feared. Andrea, you're shaking your head. What do you think about that? And John?
Well, yes, that's true. And again, when you were talking to Joel, the policies of this regime, I'm not even going to give it the dignity of an administration,
It is a regime,
are
absolutely.
very, very unpopular with basically everybody. So do I really believe that they are going to win 5 seats in Texas when they came through Hispanic districts? No.
Well, there actually there's been coverage of this. When they gerrymandered Texas, they counted on a Republican Hispanic vote. That's clearly not
There is
going to
no
happen.
such thing anymore.
Right. So and there was some what we talked on this call about how gerrymandering can backfire, and we hope
Yes.
The question in Texas, of course, I'm sorry to meander here, but this is the big question we want to ask. Jasmine Crockett was counting on the Black vote. Now, can Tallarico get the Black vote in Texas?
If he asked for it,
okay.
He's got to ask. If he doesn't ask, he's not going to get it.
Well, he should talk to you.
And he's going to need to make sure that he protects it, because you've got to know all the games they're going to be playing in Texas, and you've got to get in front of those games and protect those voters. So, yeah.
Okay, I did say, and by the way, we are not Democrats in this. We attack the Democrats as much as the Republicans. Joel, the presenter,
and I attack everybody. Democrats are stupid, and Republicans are evil.
You got
what
it.
What are you going to do?
And the Democrats. I gave away my Fetterman T-shirt, by the way. So
you didn't
I don't wear it anymore. But
Sonny,
yes.
who took it? Because I'd like to sell him a bridge.
Yes, really. Yeah, well, I voted for Fetterman because of his fashion statement. But other than the only guy ever to wear shorts to, public events, I was very much for that. But I did see, and I advise everyone else to see Tallarico's victory speech. He reminds me of one other guy that I think we have to keep an eye on as a possibility in the future, which is the governor of Kentucky, Andy Bashir.
Andy
Uh,
Bashir.
yeah, they are. I don't know what his politics are like, and I don't know what Tallarico's politics are like really in the long run. But Tallarico is.
Tallarico led the walkout in Texas.
Oh, he did. Okay. Well, he's
Yeah.
extremely charismatic in a clean-cut, nice little Christian boy way, which I get from Andy Bashir as well. Although Andy Bashir's father was a governor, so he's a little more hip. But if you want to see what's shaping up, look at these two guys, Tallarico and Andy Bashir. These are white. So I don't know if they're really progressive, but Tallarico struck me as extremely electable.
Progressive-ish.
Yeah, right. There you go. So, okay.
They're both going to be good on domestic issues. When you start looking internationally, things potentially can go downhill fairly quickly
Right.
with both of them.
But I think you're going to see Andy Bashir spring up in the polls when they start talking about potential presidents. And Tallarico, it depends on who he runs against. The crazy guy, almost this crazy guy. We'll see.
Crazy and crazier.
Yeah, really, it's unreal. But again, we're not Democrats, we're not Republicans, but we're praying for survival here. Let's give Ruth Strauss a question, and Andrea, we'll let you do your presentation, okay?
Yeah, because it's just going to be real quick.
Okay, hopefully it will be. Hi, Andrea. I just saw today a news headline that Trump is saying, I mean, you just can't, whatever, I can't even go there, that he's saying he's quote unquote not going to sign any more bills until the Congress puts through his SAVE Act or whatever this is. And that is, I'm hoping that you, Andrea, or somebody with constitutional law, proficiency can tell us how this cannot be. Thank you.
No. If he doesn't sign any bills and he doesn't veto them, they go into effect 10 days later. So whatever.
Right. And the SAVE Act is not going to pass the Senate.
It's not passing the Senate. He's talking about doing an executive order. And again, as bizarre as our Supreme Court has been, there is no way they can allow this to stand because, number one, he's going to require everybody have proof of citizenship, and then he was going to require that everyone re-register to vote so that people would automatically be disenfranchised. States control the administration of elections, barring federal law that gives them contrary instructions. There will be no federal law that says proof of citizenship is required. So he can dream.
Well,
His dreams
they'll
are
probably do it
stupid, but he can dream.
They'll probably do it in Florida, right?
Well, again, Florida theoretically could pass a state version of the SAVE Act, but a state version would have no impact on federal elections, as we saw in Arizona. So you had very confused people. You had to prove that you were a U.S. citizen in order to vote in the state election, but no such proof was required in the federal election because they could not change federal election rules. That gets interesting.
It's real interesting. So listen, next week, Andrea, if you'll come on, I want to do a full hour on what's the ins and outs of the upcoming 26 election. We'll have Ray McClendon, Ray Lutz, and some.
The really big 26 election is Virginia redistricting, because we're going for 4 additional congressional seats. Virginia wants to go 10-1.
Oh my God. Well, of course, we got
have
the
11
going on.
congressional districts. We are talking 10-1. Harvey, I need 2 seconds. I
Go,
want
go,
to
go, go.
show
Yes,
you.
please. Thank you. You've been very patient. And please come next week.
Yeah,
Okay, go ahead,
well,
Andrea.
I'm
And
only
Ruth,
going to
thank you
show
for
you
your
a couple of slides. All right, let me, whoops, wait a minute.
There's 74
I
people
went
with
and
us.
lost.
And the great
Yeah,
Andrew
this is great. This is great. All right, here's my share window. There it is. There it is. Took it a minute to come up. Sorry about
Oh, it
that.
says our ancestors fought to represent us. For you on the radio, our ancestors fought.
Our ancestors fought to represent us. Now Richmond politicians are trying to take our districts away. Vote no and return your ballot immediately to ensure your voice is heard. And the other side is, just like Jim Crow, they want to silence your voice. Vote no and return your ballot immediately to ensure your voice is heard. All right, and then up there, they've got a lovely little picture of the Ku Klux Klan and then Black people running from the police. All right, now, here's the thing that is so amazing. I am not on my regular computer. I couldn't chase my cat away. They don't want to teach Black history in school. So they go and they dredge up some Black history shots and send this to people who live in a community where, if we redistrict, they're going to get a Black member of Congress.
So this is counter. This is describe it in a word.
Well, this is number one. It is hypocrisy at its finest. Again, we don't want to teach Black history. Ooh, let's go grab Black history and trick Black people and tell them that they're giving away their voice. Vote no. Wait a minute. You're going from a crazy congressional rep to you're going to get a Black rep. What do you mean you're going to lose your voice? And you're getting a very responsive one. Now, this PAC,
so basically you want people to vote yes.
PAC,
you want people to vote yes.
Voting yes.
And they're claiming that vote no.
And they are coming up with that vote no because Black people are very for this redistricting. Why are they for it? Because they are saying, oh, good Lord, we love what is going on in Virginia in the General Assembly. And we understand that nut baskets in Washington have stolen our health care, our food, and our education. And we see an opportunity to get sane people in Washington. Well, and now they want to kill our kids in war. We see an opportunity to get sane people in Washington. This is like California redistricting. It goes away in 2030. We have an independent redistricting commission. We have commercials where people on the independent redistricting commission are like, we are the members of the redistricting commission and we support this. We are looking at crazy nonsense. And right now they've got 9 seats. We have 4. And just like California, the Virginia voters would have the opportunity to go yay or nay. The 9 Republican states, that was the state legislatures. The voters never got a chance to say anything.
So, and when is this vote?
The election is April 21st. We started voting on Friday. We have 45 days of early voting. We started voting on Friday. So I've got 15 phone banks filled with Black voters. I need people on the phones calling Black voters. We are raising money because now we've got to put up billboards. We've got to put up signs. I mean, I am going to have to text people. President Obama Obama saying he supports redistricting, going, no, what those people said. And again, is it a Black person? No, it's a pact that was created 5 days ago. The Democracy and Freedom Pact, or some ridiculous thing, the Democracy and Justice Pact. It is a white guy in Williamsburg who has appropriated literally Black history stuff and is using it against Black people. As you can tell, I am less than pleased.
Well, again, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. This is a redistricting issue. I will say, and Steve Caruso is on the phone from Ohio, we voted twice in Ohio for sane redistricting. We laid it all out, and the Republicans in the Ohio legislature completely trashed it. Outrageous. So, but you have a direct vote again. You'll have to make sure it gets implemented, and good luck with it. It is outrageous, but I'm not surprising.
Before Andrea leaves, Lynn Feinerman has a question for her.
And then, yes, and also MYLA. Lynn, go ahead, then MYLA.
That's
Thank you.
Mike Hirsch.
Andrea, recently, the entirety of Dominion voting systems was bought by Liberty Vote. I'm sure you're aware of that, by a Republican operative who is close to the rump. And I'm wondering what your view is of how damaging that can be, and in what ways, and what ways.
It's horrible. Now, in Virginia, we vote on paper. We have voted on paper since 2014. While we do not hand count our ballots, we require the retention of the ballot images for 7 years, the same way we require the retention of the paper ballots that were fed into the machine. Why did they break into the storage house in Fulton County, Georgia, in 2024, in the Black precincts where there were tons of Black people waiting to vote? All of a sudden, several precincts had to close because of bomb threats. Now, was there really a bomb? No. Did anybody believe there was really a bomb? No. They were adjusting the voting machines.
Jesus. So, I just want to kind of ask one more question, which is tangential to this. How can we, what are we going to be able to do to stop this? Because they basically are trying to own the systems.
We're going to do a full session on this next week. We're going to devote the whole hour. We're going to do the deep dive. Can we do that, Lynn? Can we wait a week?
Yeah, that's fine.
Because we do have a guest at the top. MYLA Reson, then Mike Hirsch.
People can ask for a paper ballot.
Right, and we can make phone calls at the Center for Common Ground. We can do little things, which are not so little. It's actually huge. And I just put the link in the chat to sign up for that phone bank. And, that's one thing that we can do. And Andrea, is that happening right now? Is that Virginia?
Yes.
So the Virginia,
now,
go ahead.
Every Tuesday and Thursday, there's training on how to use our dialer. Now, we leave messages. So, you need a phone and a computer. And then on that web page, those are all direct links to a phone bank for that particular county. We provide information to voters. We're not trying to persuade anybody to do anything. We're giving people voting information. Here's the phone number of your registrar. Here's the address of where you early vote. Oh, you're in Fairfax County. Are you going to early vote on election day, or vote by mail? Well, Fairfax County has 3 early voting locations that are open now, and 13 early voting locations that will be open the 2 Saturdays. We've got any kind of information voters will need, so they will be able to go and vote. And once you know how to run our phone bank, they run every day, 9 a.m. to 8
Okay.
p.m. You just sit down, click the link, call away. Maybe one day you want to call Chesterfield, another day you want to call Virginia Beach. Calling Black voters is very different than calling non-Black voters. They're not going to be mean to you. They're not going to yell at you. Now, they might hang up, and you're going to leave a lot of messages.
Okay,
We've got 470,000 numbers in those phone banks.
We have Anna Georgie with us, who's been waiting patiently, Anna, because of the foul up. I didn't get to you, but I do want to. If you can stay with us, that'd be great. Andrea Miller, is there a website that people should go to?
Yeah, Sonny, we've been
Yeah.
sharing it in the chat.
We've been sharing
okay.
it. Yeah.
All right, very good. And Andrea, please do come back next week with Ray, the two Rays,
I'll be back.
Ray Lutz and Ray McClendon, and we're going to go deep dive. And Lynn Feinerman, thanks for your question. You'll be first up next week, okay?
And
my
Sonny, I have
thank you.
something real quick
Excuse
for
me, can I
Andrea
just
before
say
she
that,
goes. Oh, go ahead, Myla.
yeah, we've been sharing it in the chat, but for people who are listening on the radio,
Yes, go
you
ahead.
can go
Give
to
it, please.
Center for Common Ground, all spelled out, .org. And if they are really ambitious, they can / phone banks.
Okay.
And we're doing postcards too.
Yeah.
And Sonny, I just wanted to say really quickly, I'm not surprised that the guy running the anti-campaign is in Williamsburg. He's probably from colonial Williamsburg because he wants to drag you back to colonial times.
There we go. Andrea Miller, you're always
Age.
fantastic. We're going to have you next week. And thank you so much. A really stellar performance. And come back next week. We're going to deep dive. We have Anna Georgie on. Anna, you've been buried for, I didn't, anyway, you're here.
Great show. No problem.
Okay. You talked about, you wrote a beautiful article about why No King's Day should also be no nukes. It's March 28th. That is the anniversary of the accident at 3 Mile Island, as we all know. I was just astounded when the two dates came up the same. Tell us about your piece and what you're going to be doing to merge No Nukes and No Kings.
Well, as soon as the No Kings 3 date was announced, it just rang bells and took me right back. You know, I think you remember too, you know, so much of our work around nuclear power was not understood, not really, you know, it went pretty far. Even the 2,000 people who were arrested and, you know, took over the Seabrook nuclear plant site in 77 made the news and all, but it was still very much a local issue around the particular fights that people were having in their communities, and with some help. So that day, 47 years ago, that day, that was a watershed, that was a breakthrough, that was like a giant consciousness raising event. You know, people understood, okay, we can't see it. We're told to close our windows, but there's something, they couldn't hide it, you know? So that said to me that March 28th needs to be a similar kind of day of reckoning. So yes, all the people and groups that are working against nuclear energy and its new forms that don't work and are as dangerous as the big reactors, but also nuclear weapons, you know, the trillions of dollars going into that, can take advantage of this conjuncture of the March 28th.
Yes.
And I saw that Back to the Brink, they now have T-shirts,
Yeah.
you know, no kings, no nukes. So, and the nuclear weapons proliferation is increasing. We have that danger in so many places now all over the Middle East, you know, as well as Ukraine. But since the war started, now it's also has to be
Yes, it
no
does.
kings, no nukes, no war.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that was the only point I wanted to make. And also that the work that you do before is really important. And Sonny, always
Yeah.
Chicago to me, was very instrumental in this book, which is our compendium of how it works and what's wrong with it and what people are doing around the country and around the world. And it was published 3 weeks before the accident at 3 Mile Island.
My God.
And I was just Googling, what do they say about the book? And over it says it was published after 3 Mile Island. But the point is, all this work was done before,
Right.
and
Anna,
that's so crucial. So we have to get our act together for when the turning comes. We've got a program. We're out there with all our different allies.
yes, well, you were doing your work at the same time they were filming the China Syndrome. So
Yes,
before the accident. So listen, Anna, if you can come back in a half hour, is that possible?
I kind of said what I wanted to say.
Okay, well, we're going to be talking
I'll
about
stick it
Palisades.
out. I love the show.
I got Kevin Camps and Carl Grossman in a half hour, and then we're going to talk about Palisades. If you want to rejoin us, you're more than welcome.
Okay,
that was a
good.
beautiful presentation, and
Great.
we want to have you back. In the interim, thank you for joining us. As a pre-planned, we have a really powerful and important guest brought to us by the great Camilla Reese, Paul Heroux. And Camilla, you're on. We're going to be talking for a half hour now about electromagnetic fields and diabetes, which is extremely important. And then we'll return for the last half hour of our 2-hour gig to talk about nuclear power and especially in Michigan, but also again with Anna, the joining of the no kings and no nukes and now no war on March 28th, which is not far away. It's 19 days. So Camilla Reese, can you introduce our next extremely important guest? And this is a presentation that people don't get to hear much on the radio or in a gathering like this. We have 70 people. Paul Heroux. Camilla Reese, can you introduce Paul?
Absolutely, yes. So we're going to be talking about diabetes and why is this important? Diabetes is the most expensive chronic illness in America. Over 400 billion annually is spent on it. An estimated 40 million Americans have diabetes and 115 million people have prediabetes over 18 years of age. And the treatments that people are given, they may lower the blood sugar, like insulin, but they don't address the underlying metabolic problems that are happening and the other risks that people get, like the vision problems, neuropathy, kidney issues, and many more. And so Dr. Paul Heroux, who we have with us today, he is on the Faculty of Medicine at in the Department of Epidemiology, Biostatistics, and Occupational Health at McGill University in Canada. And he's published both on the risks from electromagnetic fields from telecommunications technologies as well as power systems over many years. And he is very unique among the scientists out there because he has 3 physics degrees and a background in biomedical biology. And usually you find people with one or the other, and he's very valuable because he's got 2 of both of those things. And so he's published a new paper that is associating type 2 diabetes with electromagnetic fields from both power systems and telecommunications, cell towers, Wi-Fi, cell phones. And it came out about 10 days ago. It's called Power Systems, Telecommunications, and Diabetes. And so welcome, Dr. Heroux, and we look forward to hearing about your paper.
Thank you very much, Camilla. So shall I outlay the content approximately of that paper?
Sure. Please.
Okay, so basically we're familiar with power systems, the electricity that we use, all of us, and the electrical industry took care of acute or short-term effects like electrocution in the course of the 20th century. That was fairly obvious. But the chronic effects of this radiation were not documented until 1979 with the epidemiologist Nancy Wertheimer at the University of Colorado. That was with childhood leukemia. Later, we have RF coming into our environment in great quantities. So in the 1960s, industry established limits of exposure to this radiation that only considered, unfortunately, the thermal effects of the radiation. At that moment, science did its work very, very well in the sense that they said, well, there are effects of this radiation that have nothing to do with heat or with electrocution that you should be very concerned about. So basically, at Duke University in 1980, Sanders, Schaefer, and Joines documented fully that radio frequency radiation could interfere with human metabolism. Surprising. And the Russians in 1981 in Moscow determined that one of the causes of this was that this radiation interferes with the basic structure of water, which is a very troubling thing because we have something in our bodies, which is called the aqueous phase, which is very, very important. But then what happened is that industry sensed a threat, and particularly the United States Navy and the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers took control of the health and risk evaluation process. Using people like Herman Schwann and Patrick Riley, they essentially arranged to fund risks on the health effects of heat and to screen the scientific literature to capture essentially how these risks would be assessed. And third, they promoted their own opinions of science with politicians. They used their two very simple arguments. They said the non-ionizing radiation is by definition non-ionizing. That means that it can't be dangerous. But the counter to that is that our bodies, as you know, are permanently ionized. We are full of ions and of moving charges. They also said these charges, these fields are too weak to heat molecules. Unfortunately, the target of this radiation is not molecules. It is electrons flowing and protons flowing. And when we're talking about protons, this is not science fiction. You know that protons are very important in biology. I could discuss this for a very long time, but those are the same protons that you measure when you measure pH, and we will come back to this a little later. So in 1992, industry installed the International Commission on Non-Ionizing Radiation Protection, and the role of this was to maintain the standards high because they needed these high standards to deploy a lot of wireless systems. A little bit later, I did some experiments of my own on radio frequencies and low frequencies. I determined that electromagnetic fields in particular can be an agonist of metformin. I think this is a drug that is familiar to many of you. It is essentially a drug that inhibits the electron transport chain in complex 1 of mitochondria. And it was also an antagonist of resistin. And both of these chemicals, as well as electromagnetic radiation, act on adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase, AMPK, which is a master regulator of metabolism in all cells, mammalian as well as more primitive cells. So when I realized that metformin, which is a first-line medication for the treatment of type 2 diabetes, could be simulated by small magnetic field exposures, I was very, very troubled. At the same time, industry was evolving.
How many people take that drug that you just mentioned, metformin? How many people are we talking about are affected by this negation from the electromagnetic fields?
Unfortunately, I am not a clinician, but I know that it is a first-line medication.
You're talking millions of people.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
And of course, ELF, electromagnetic fields, are is a blanket exposure in populations. So you have these two convening factors that do the same thing, apparently, that affect metabolism and blood sugar.
So you're saying that people with diabetes who take metformin, and Mike Hirsch has just said that he takes it, can be adversely affected by electromagnetic radiation?
Well, electromagnetic radiation is an agonist of metformin, which means that it is able to alter the traffic of electrons within the oxidative phosphorylation pathway, which is very, very basic to all living systems. So because your exposure to electromagnetic fields is extremely variable over time, you have significant variations in this variable that is a target of metformin.
So you're saying that millions of people could be affected, that there's clear evidence, at least on this pathway in terms of diabetes, that electromagnetic radiation can affect the health of people with diabetes one way or the other, if they're taking metformin or they're not.
Oh, absolutely.
So is
Whether
it
they are
making the
taking
metformin
metformin or not,
ineffective?
the rates of diabetes that you have now are influenced by your exposure to electromagnetic fields.
And these electromagnetic fields are it's a war of choice. These electromagnetic fields are being unnaturally proliferated by the industry with no health studies, essentially.
Absolutely.
Oh
And
my
that's
God.
what his new paper has done. He's consolidated all the research and built the argument of how the electromagnetic fields are impacting the electrons and mitochondria. And so he's not exactly saying it's causative, but he's saying that he's documenting how the non-thermal, low-intensity electromagnetic fields interfere with how mitochondria move protons and electrons, disrupting core metabolic processes and resulting in situations that are characteristic of diabetes. So it's very important. And I think what Harvey, you were asking about metformin, I think is this not right, Dr. Haru, that metformin is made ineffective, that the first line of treatment for diabetes, metformin, its efficacy is impacted by the
Well, it's an agonist, so it adds. So if you're trying to establish levels in your plasma that are therapeutic, magnetic fields increases or decreases will play with that variable.
So
now,
we got
if you're
Mike,
wondering,
well, our co-host Mike Hirsch has been texting here. Mike, you take metformin, and do you want to ask Paul if you're being affected by EMF here?
Well, I do know that that our doctors who prescribe this medication are very careful to measure the effects. And but if what we're hearing is accurate, and it sounds like it is, that this could play havoc with the levels, and you don't know what's being effective and what's not being effective. And this needs to be addressed and taken into consideration.
Actually, it's the same case with all kinds of drugs that could be either, their effects could be amplified or inhibited. It's not just metformin.
Thank you so much for that, Camille. But I was just going to suggest reaching out to like the Diabetes Association, the Heart Association, these other very wealthy organizations, and let them know that this is a risk, and have them reach out to scientists and doctors to get to the bottom of this, and use their outreach to people to call attention to this situation.
Interesting. Is that something you've done, Dr. Haru, to talk to these?
No. I have not reached out to them, but I want to inform you on the site of action, exactly where this happens. In the body, we have what we call the intracellular fluid, and there's the fluid between cells. And this fluid happens to be very, very poorly buffered for pH. And one of the properties of electromagnetic radiation is that it can change the pH in fluids, particularly if the fluid is poorly buffered. And so in this intracellular fluid, you have a connection with GLUT4, which is glucose transporter 4. So when you reduce the pH in the intracellular fluid, you are able essentially to reduce the binding of insulin to GLUT4. So essentially, there is a dynamic that relates EMR variations over time to physiological reactions, pointing to generating essentially a chaos in terms of the regulation of energy and, of course, of glucose in the blood. So is there epidemiological evidence for this? Well, you might remember the United States, the Arab oil embargo of 1973, 1974. And when the embargo came into being, there was a steep reduction in power consumption in the United States. And according to physiology of diabetes, it takes about 7 years for the effect of a change to be reflected in diabetes rates. And if you look at the historical curves of diabetes and at the historical curves of power consumption in the United States, you will see that if you take into account the 7-year delay, the changes in power consumption in the United States are followed by changes in the rates of diabetes.
Gosh, that's amazing.
Yes.
That's really amazing. We all know, of course, when there was a blackout, the birth rate went up, but it's not quite the same. So what you're saying basically is we went through this with atomic radiation, where it was shown that radiation from nuclear power plants was directly linked to cancer rates in the area. You're saying that there is clear epidemiological is a fancy word for the study of epidemics. You're saying that there's a clear connection between electromagnetic frequency and diabetes?
Yes, but between your consumption of electrical power and the rates of diabetes in the population, and as well, if you look at the regulation that was passed by one of your presidents to facilitate the deployment of cell phone towers, this as well is connected with a rise in diabetes. So both forms of radiation that are very widespread in the public, low frequencies and radio frequencies, both have metabolic effects that are detrimental to the rate of diabetes in populations.
Tell us about this. Tell us about this.
Talking about legislation, you're talking about 1994 Telecommunications Act.
1996.
When Clinton was president. Go ahead, Camilla.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And of course, you can also relate this to weight gain because electromagnetic radiation is able to inhibit mitochondria. You probably heard about brown fat cells. You know why they're brown, right? It's because they have a lot of mitochondria in them compared to white fat cells. So if you inhibit those, you destroy the body's ability to essentially eliminate lipids, which are a store of energy. So in my mind, the growth of average body weight can also be connected with our growth of the use of electrical power and of wireless frequencies. Now, I don't need to tell you that the cost to society of diabetes is enormous. If I look at it's about $686 million for the United States alone. So it's a very, very serious situation.
Billion. Probably billion.
Billion.
Yes, that's right. So it's a lot of money. So if we want this increase in diabetes rates to be curbed, we not only have to watch our exercise, we not only have to watch our food, we also have to watch our environment. And unfortunately, there is no regulation that is effective to protect people at the moment.
This is really, really powerful stuff. Well, I got 5 more minutes for you. Doctor, you're a great guest. And thank you, Camilla, for bringing him. We're going to have you back. This is shocking. I never thought about this, it's mind-boggling. Camilla and then Steve Caruso.
Yeah.
Caruso.
But Paul, you in your paper that just came out, you talk about solutions and how this knowledge, this new insight is really an opportunity for people to improve their health and for society to change some of the ways that we do things, like with our electrical wiring and minimizing exposures in our home where we can control the RF. Can you talk a little bit about the what you think is necessary?
So I have a past in engineering, so I'm familiar with power systems. I am also familiar with telecommunication systems. And for both of these systems, there is mitigation that is entirely possible. There are some things that you could do in your electrical network to really reduce exposure to low frequency magnetic fields. You cannot do these things suddenly, because a lot of those are simple geometrical alterations that you can implement at essentially zero cost to provide a safer environment. Now, for the radio frequency radiation, we've recently deployed cellular networks that are considerable. And so for this, we would need to change somewhat our personal habits and convince industry that is entirely blind to the effect of this radiation to take it seriously. We need the cooperation of the engineering community if we are going to kill the diabetes epidemic.
Wow, that's something I have never heard before. You heard it here first. That is my mind. So what kinds of technologies are you talking about that generate the electromagnetic frequencies? Are you talking cell towers?
Well, in the case of cell towers, of course, there are limits that the government, the Federal Communications Commission in the United States, has installed in order to supposedly protect the population. But these standards are based essentially on tests that were made by the US Navy many years ago on 8 monkeys on the basis of their changes of behavior within 1 hour. In other words, they took 8 monkeys, they tested them for 1 hour, and they determined that this is the threshold of biological effects. They use a compartmental, basically a behavioral index to assess the chronic effects on humans over 80 years, and their tests were run over about 60 minutes. So it's extraordinary.
Ridiculous.
And how industry could convince politicians that this was a genuine standard that protected people from a major environmental invasion is absolutely beyond me. I don't understand.
Well, I can tell you exactly how they did it. Bribery. I'm sure they paid campaign. I mean, it's always the same. Steve Caruso, you want to jump in on this, please? And I see Kevin Camp's with us. Kevin?
Yeah, we're like the bees. You get an attack from all sides and eventually accumulates biologically and kills us. You have PCRM coming out with statements saying that diabetes is essentially caused by pancreatic beta cells mimicking cow enzymes or proteins. And then when the body tries to defend from the dairy products, it attacks the pancreatic beta cells as well. So you have that going on too. You also, another article I found interesting lately was this CRPB component in the cells that repairs your DNA. And they found that in blue whales, where some whale population goes up to the Arctic where it's cold all the time, these are in a higher level because of the cold. So that the DNA repair is happening there. I'm getting kind of far afield here.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for that. And it reminds me of the guy who goes in the cold tubs all the time. Paul, we have Anna Georgie on with us. And Anna did, when we were first starting the No Nukes movement against nuclear power reactors, we confronted the industry telling us that nuclear power did not harm people. And then we more recently had this lunatic Ann Coulter. We haven't heard from her for a while, saying literally that atomic radiation is good for you. Are you encountering Anna? You remember all that stuff, and she put it in her book. And we have that one graphic of a woman's body and showing how radiation harms various organs. There's a real parallel here between what we faced with the nuclear power industry and what you're facing with the electromagnetic industry.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Very much so. I would like to say one thing, Harvey, or ask Dr. Haru. He has a great interest not only in diabetes, but in the fat accumulation in people and in the EMF effects on intellectual performance. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your interest in the EMF effects on intellectual performance.
Well, you know that in your brain you have the hippocampus. This is the seat of memory. This is one of the parts of the brain that is most highly dependent on oxygen. We know this. Well, when you suppress metabolism, oxidative phosphorylation, you essentially suppress the use of oxygen within tissues. So it's not a surprise that there's lots of documentation linking electromagnetic field exposures to memory lapses. So you have to understand the crucial situation in which we are. We have schools in the United States where our children are sitting underneath Wi-Fi routers while trying to learn stuff. And it's not a good situation. These exposures can be very, very high. And this part of our brain that manipulates information, the hippocampus, is extremely susceptible to this radiation.
God, that kills me, Anna.
That's like why it seems like everybody's being dumbed down today.
Well, I first learned about this when I lived in Europe, and in Germany there was a movement around this. And then there was the famous case of the fellow who studied in the National Library in Paris and had reactions and was able to prove that this was caused by the Wi-Fi all through the study rooms, and they stopped that at the Bibliothèque Nationale. And I use Ethernet. I'm wired, and there's things you can do, but it's just tragic in the schools, absolutely, and children who are glued to getting the radiation. Dr. Haru, I understood that in Russia they don't allow the use of microwave ovens. Is that true?
No, they use all the same machines that we use here, but the Russians acted completely independently from the Western Hemisphere in terms of establishing their standards. They assessed plegia, which is a neurological model, and they determined that the safe levels for radiation were about 1,000 times less than what is allowed by the FCC. And many other countries in the world have limits for safety for radio frequency radiation that are very substantially lower than what we have in the United States. So all this growth of what we call the diseases of civilization are of course due to a number of things. But one of the major components is the incredible growth in our electromagnetic environment in the last century that really parallels very, very convincingly the growth in the electromagnetic environment as related to diabetes.
And there's no end in sight. And that's what I want everybody to understand. The industry and the FCC are trying to greatly expand the antennas and take away local rights to influence the siting of the cell towers. There's new proposed rules from the FCC that may go into effect that would virtually strip all state and local ability to regulate the cell towers. And they plan to put them up every 750 feet across the country, I've heard. And so we have a serious diabetes problem now. It's going to get way worse, as well as other illnesses associated with the radiation. And we need people to get behind the 704 No More initiative, which I know we spoke about here before. And by the way, for those of you who want to know how to clean up your own lives from wireless, there's a new initiative. 704 No More has a spring clean your wireless initiative just announced the other day, and they have great checklists. You can look down the list and see all the different ways in your own premises, in your homes, that you can lower and eliminate these exposures.
Wow, I'm going to do that. Can you put that up in the chat?
Yeah, I will.
Okay, this has been phenomenal. We're going to have you back, Dr. Haru. I mean, really fascinating stuff that I don't think and many of us have heard before. So a wonderful presentation. We have Kevin Camps waiting. We're going to go, if you want to stay and watch what Donald Trump has been doing with commercial atomic power. It's terrifying. But this is really another dimension. Kamala, thank you for bringing Dr. Haru, and we will have you back. That's really an amazing presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And still got 67 people with us. For a technical talk, you sustain the audience. I think it's that fascinating Canadian accent, but it's really great to have you with us. And we want you back. And Anna, I'm glad you were able to connect. Okay? Thank you, Paul, and thank you, Camilla Reese.
Yeah, and you're welcome to stay on, Paul, if you want to listen to the rest of it.
We have three great experts in the nuclear power issue. Anna Georgie's going to stay with us. We have Carl Grossman on Long Island. We have Kevin Camps in Kalamazoo, Michigan. I will safely say, Kevin, you're the only guest we have on who originates in Kalamazoo, Michigan. But you've got some really important stuff, and I want to say Kevin is independent now, and I'm looking for groups and support in his work, which is absolutely essential. We've had a major article published in the Detroit Free Press now by Roger Rappaport questioning the progress of this insane idea of reviving the Palisades nuclear plant. And this is something that sort of sub rosa in the middle of a war, but the nuclear industry under Trump has gotten it into its head to take dead nuclear power plants and turn them back on, which is it's like taking the Corvair and the Pinto that's up on blocks in your front yard and fire them up again. This is horrendous. And Kevin is there in Kalamazoo at the scene of the crime. Kevin, can you fill us in on the latest developments on this? Because they also want to restart 3 Mile Island, if you can believe that, and Duane Arnold in Iowa and Indian Point outside of New York City. Kevin, what is the latest now on Palisades, and what are we hearing at the federal level?
Thanks, Harvey. Yes, so Palisades was designed in the mid-1960s. Ground was broken in 1967. It fired up in 1971. It shut down for good, so we thought, in 2022. But immediately upon getting its claws into the place, the company that owns it now, controls it now, Holtec International, which has never operated a reactor, has never repaired a reactor, has proposed not only restarting this 60-year-old zombie, but also building 2 new reactors on this tiny site. It's only 432 acres. Where it's at is we've been fighting the restart since we learned of it 4 years ago. And they had initially predicted that they could restart it by mid-2024, 2 years into their ownership. Well, that was a while ago. And then for the past number of years, they've very confidently, but falsely, clearly now, predicted that they could restart it in 2025. They said June, they said August, they said October, they said December. They did not restart it in 2025. The latest predictions, and they're not making them anymore, at least not at the present, was by February or March 2026, for sure we're going to restart it. But you mentioned Roger Rappaport's opinion piece in the Detroit Free Press. There has been the latest safety revelations at Palisades just in the past few weeks that have to do with the reactor vessel closure head, with pressurizer nozzles. These are very safety significant. And That indicates yet another delay. We don't know when Palisades will restart, but when it does, and if it does, this is risk taking in uncharted territory. We've known for many, many decades that Palisades is a disaster waiting to happen. And that was before Entergy ran it into the ground from 2007 to 2022, and before Holtec further ran it into the ground from 2022 to the present. So this latest safety revelation that Roger Rappaport has written about in the Detroit Free Press, we've known about problems with the reactor vessel closure head at Palisades since at least spring of 2006, when the original owner, Consumers Energy, admitted to the State of Michigan Public Service Commission that the reactor vessel closure head, also you can call it a lid on the reactor, needed replacement in its entirety at a cost of around $100 million. They never did it. Why did they never do it? Because the Nuclear Regulatory Commission never required it, not under the ownership of Consumers, not under the ownership of Entergy, now under the ownership of Holtec. So it is but the latest of about a dozen major safety systems that have had recent revelations or even ancient revelations of problems that are pathways to meltdown. So I saw, Harvey, that you'd been in communication with Michael Schneider about similar reactor vessel closure head problems in Europe. And that report, when was it published? In the early 1990s? This
Yeah,
is not an
1992. Yeah.
This is not an unprecedented problem. One of my favorite problems at Palisades to bring up, or least favorite, is the embrittlement of the reactor pressure vessel. Michael Keegan at Don't Waste Michigan, Coalition for the Nuclear Free Great Lakes, wrote a backgrounder about that in 1993, about how Palisades was the worst in the United States in terms of embrittlement. Actually, Jim Riccio, then at Nuclear Information and Resource Service, had written a backgrounder about it in 1988. Palisades is the worst in the country. And we got the NRC, after a lot of hard work, to make a list of the 5 worst embrittled reactor pressure vessels in the United States. This was April of 2013. And Palisades was the worst. A close second was Point Beach Unit 2 on the other side of Lake Michigan. The 2 worst embrittled reactors in the country are on either side of Lake Michigan, right on the shoreline. And then the other 3 in that short list included Diablo Canyon Unit 1, which now has a green light from the powers that be to operate indefinitely into the future, despite other issues like seismic concerns. You had also Beaver Valley Unit 1, I believe, in Pennsylvania. And you also had Indian Point Unit 3. And I'm glad you mentioned Indian Point, Harvey, because the zombie reactor list grows. And Holtec, in its insanity, its criminal insanity, has proposed several months ago to rebuild Indian Point Units 2 and 3, which it has been paid lots of money to disassemble in recent years. They want to rebuild it now at the low, low bargain basement price of $10 billion of public
Right.
money.
So, yeah, let's put this in perspective. Holtec, which is a New Jersey company run by Tony Soprano, basically bought Indian Point and bought Palisades on the presumption that they were going to dismantle it. And then they turned around and said, oh, we're not going to dismantle it now, we're going to restart it. Total bait and switch. I mean, ridiculous. Yes. And then embrittlement, some of our people might know, embrittlement, you have the core of a nuclear reactor, and it's stainless steel or whatever, and it has some flexibility. But with time and pressure and heat and radiation, it loses the flexibility. So if, God forbid, there's an accident and you pour in water, an embrittled reactor pressure vessel will shatter like glass. And then you have, Chernobyl and Fukushima beyond 3 Mile Island all over again.
It's and like so, a hot glass under cold water, except it's at a ton of pressure per square inch. And so it's called pressurized thermal shock. We're talking a massive crack through the entire reactor pressure vessel, which is 8 inches thick. It's significantly thick steel. It's carbon steel mostly, with an inner layer of stainless steel. Why would they put that there? to protect the carbon steel of the rest of the reactor pressure vessel from the boric acid in the cooling water inside the reactor. And why do I bring this up? Because Davis-Besse in Ohio had a leak on top of the reactor where boric acid was attacking the carbon steel of the exterior of the reactor pressure vessel. It was coming from the inside, leaking out, and it ate a hole as big as a football in the top of the reactor, in the reactor vessel closure head. So the NRC, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the industry have had warnings about this stuff for many decades. That took place in 2002 at Davis-Besse, Ohio. It was the nearest miss since 3 Mile Island Unit 2. Right. It led to $33 million in fines against First Energy, but more significantly monetarily, it led to something like 600, I'm forgetting the figure now. I think it was $600 million in replacement electricity costs that the ratepayers got to pay for. And so we're taking the risks with the lid at Palisades, despite the known risks from Davis-Besse. And the list goes on. The previous safety issue that got the most attention at Palisades was degradation of the tubes of the steam generators, which was a self-inflicted wound by Holtec in their incompetence.
We're basically talking about here a wreck. This is a wreck of a reactor. And the idea that a rookie operation in New Jersey, which has never operated a nuclear plant, would come in and restart this place is insane, which is why the nuclear industry, led by Donald Trump, is allowing it to happen. Now, you got to remember now, Donald Trump now has personal financial investments in nuclear power. The Trump crime family has bought into a fusion company. They own a stake in the atomic power industry, and they are now dismantling the already weak regulatory commission, and they are allowing this restart sickness to go forward. So Kevin is there, and one other thing, and then we're going to go to Carl and Anna. When it comes to nuclear power these days, you know, we're hearing all this nonsense about small reactors and blah, blah, blah. Nobody does the math. Nobody is talking about the money involved here. We have had a report from Cato, which is an extreme right-wing pro-market operation, think tank, that says basically that these reactors cannot pay for themselves. Now, Kevin, they're up to $5, $6, $7 billion or more to restart Palisades and to put in small reactors to get to 1,400 megawatts. Wind power, and I was in the wind business for a year, wind power is $1 million a megawatt, right? So we could build, there could be wind power, which is a quarter of the cost along the west coast of Michigan, which has more than enough wind to ever power the area. You could power that region with wind power within 2 years with proven technology that's not radioactive, backed up by batteries, so there's no intermittency for, you know, a fraction of the cost of what they're talking about. It's insane.
Well, try this on for irony. So Jennifer Granholm, who was AG of Michigan, then governor of Michigan, while governor of Michigan, she did an offshore wind power potential study for the Great Lakes accessible to Michigan. Michigan has access to a large part of the Great Lakes. And the figure was more than 300,000 megawatts of wind power potential on the Great Lakes. This was offshore. This did not include onshore wind power potential. So, okay, even if you assume 1/3 efficiency, which wind power is getting better and better at its efficiency, that's still
it's also got battery backup now.
That's still 100,000 megawatts of wind power potential on the Great Lakes to be tapped. And to her credit, and I give Granholm credit for doing the right thing, she had a advisory panel. They had 24 criteria where to site these offshore wind turbines to mitigate any negative impact. And they chose the extreme south of Lake Michigan. That's where Palisades is located. They chose the extreme north of Lake Michigan. There's some industrial ports up there. And they chose Saginaw Bay, where it empties into Lake Huron, which is also industrialized, such as Dow Chemical, for one
So
thing.
the bottom line is there's way, way, way more potential electric, and it's a fraction the cost of
And
what
the
they have to
safety.
pay to redo Palisades. It's insane. It's
The
ridiculous.
biggest concern that we have is the safety. They can take out the Great Lakes state in its entirety
Right.
with a bad day at Palisades.
Right. Well, you remember, of course, that Governor Pritzker wanted to rename Lake Michigan Lake Illinois. So we have to take that into account. But nonetheless, Carl Grossman and then Anna Georgie. Carl, you want to comment on this and then Anna?
In terms of New York and Indian Point, just a few days ago on Friday, the U.S. Energy Secretary Chris Wright joined with a Republican congressman, Mike Lawler from New York, and they announced a push to get the Indian Point plants going again, started again. Again, it's the same thing with supposedly taken over by Holtec for decommissioning. These plants are located in the most densely populated portion of the United States, long considered disaster waiting to happen. And well, they're giving it, they're in the process potentially of getting an extension on there being a disaster waiting to happen. And just furthermore, we talk a lot about Newsom and what he did with Diablo Canyon, but his equivalent on the East Coast is Kathy Hochul, who's the governor of New York. Just looking here, a statement she made about carbon-free nuclear energy, saying, "I'm the first Democratic governor in a generation to say to nuclear, I'm embracing this. So here you have on both sides of the United States and in the middle with Whitmer, you have public education is needed because the political system, both sides of the aisle, have just been paid off by the nuclear establishment.
It's well, of course, as we learned from the last presenter, if you embrace nuclear power, you're going to get cancer. Anna Georgie, then we say hi to Ace Hoffman, then we got to hit the road. Fantastic. Kevin Camps, it's great to have you. Put on your contacts, please, Kevin Camps. Anna Georgie?
Yeah, thanks for all the work. So I guess I'm wondering if anything, people have plans for the no kings, no nukes, because one thing I just saw in Germany, they're preparing for their big Easter march for peace that they do every year. And the Central Peace Group has all these signs you can download, like making things available. And I think there's time to do that kind of thing. I'm wondering, I'm not in touch now with NEARS or Beyond Nuclear, but groups, this is their chance to do some education and, press releases and get out there, and especially in areas where you've got big fights like Palisades, that's.
Yeah. Well, again, put the link to your article in if you can about linking no nukes, and if you can't, it's okay.
It was a memo. I couldn't even find it.
We're going to talk about this again next week.
The Clamshell Alliance meets monthly, and they're meeting this Wednesday, and they've already sent a call out to, I think, 465 groups and people to make this connection. So
good.
I hope.
Well, I think most of us will be out March 28th marching. We want to make sure we make this connection. Anna, great to have you. Carl, Ace Hoffman, and then Kevin, we're going to give you the last word. Ace?
Well, first I want to thank Anna for her
version.
Yeah,
that's the thing you did, Anna. You're ionizing radiation.
Yeah, that's my version, and her version is on page 84 of that wonderful, amazing book. I wanted to, if you don't mind, take 1 minute to talk about AI and data centers and the war in Iran. Iran has apparently already hit 3 data centers because the data centers are being used to target Iran. They want to put nuclear power plants to charge up the data centers, to power the data centers. That makes the nuclear power plants a target of war because the data centers will all be used for targeting during any war. This is a really bad situation. I just wanted to bring it to everyone's attention because it scares.
Well, you look at these data centers as big, long buildings. They don't have solar panels on top of them. I think it should be a law that no data center, and a lot of what they're doing is crypto, by the way. And no data center should be allowed to get outside power. They should just be forced to power their own buildings. They got big enough roofs, for God's sakes. If they say they need more power, your AI should be smart enough to bring your power needs down. Right, Ace? So, Ace, it's great to have you with us. And that is Anna's classic illustration. Okay, Kevin, and Ace, you and I are here in California. We still got to deal with that Diablo Canyon, which is unreal. But you did have a hand in shutting San Onofre, so we know we can shut reactors in Anna's in Western Mass, where we prevented the Montague nukes from being built. So we can win this. Kevin Camps, can you tell people how to get a hold of you and how to support your work?
Yeah, I put it in the chat along with a bunch of links for more information, but my current contact information is email-wise kevin.camps, Kamps, @proton.me. And my cell phone number is area code 269-217-6326.
Kevin, it's great to have you with us, and God knows we need you. You, Mike Keegan, and Roger Rappaport, you should be able to take Palisades down. I'm going to tell you right now, I will tell you right now, Palisades will never reopen. It will never.
Lead singer of Ionic.
So there you go. We are almost out of time. I do want to point out, I do have a piece up, the triumvirate, the trifecta of 2026. There are 3 gargantuan battles we have to win this year. Protect the election, reclaim our media, and then we're going to talk about that again next week, and go to Solartopia. If we can accomplish that trifecta, there may actually be a future for the human race. So we'll talk about that next week. Steve has been kind enough to post the link to my article. So take a look, Steve, and then MYLA, and then we're going to rock and roll here. Steve, go ahead.
Vina Coley, please step up to the mic. Thank you.
Okay, MYLA, do you want to say something? We'll go to Vina Coley.
Let's listen to Vina, and then I'll go after Vina.
Okay, go to Vina Coley from Southern Ohio.
I just have a couple of things to say. Piketon dropped the cylinder in 78, and the dose to the people of Piketon was higher than 3 Mile Island. And we have 25,000 of those cylinders sitting in the yard now. And then I want to say something what Ace was talking about, the data centers. We're here fighting the data centers. They're trying to put them in every 25 miles within the A plant. And our fuel from high assay, low enriched uranium can fuel these data centers, along with these small nuclear modulars can also feed the data center. So we better keep an eye on what's going on with Piketon, because they're making a lot of stuff out there that's fueling a lot of databases.
Thank you, Vina, and thank you for being on the case all these years in Southern Ohio. We appreciate it. MYLA RESON?
No, I just want to say that with this war and the shortage of oil and the price of gasoline going up, it seems like a really perfect time for people to come to the realization that we have to get off of nuclear power and fossil fuel. And this is a pathway to peace. You know, with something that, Sonny, you've been talking about for many, many decades now, this vision of a green-powered Earth, a peaceful green-powered Earth, where we turn away from fossil fuel and we turn away from nuclear power and we embrace the great potential of sustainable, clean, safe energy.
Thank you for that. And thank you. And I want to note, by the way, California Solartopia, the half-hour show that MYLA and I do with Tatanka Bricka, is going to be back on the air at KPFK at 4 in the morning. But we do have the half-hour show available at pacificanetwork.org, and we are sending it around nationwide. So thank you for that. Thank you, Steve Caruso, for engineering. Again, we're up at PRN on Thursdays. And next week, we're going to do a very deep dive, a full hour on election protection. That is what, and we are going to revive that website, usgrassroots.org. And again, look at freepress.org for the article, The Trifecta of 2026, which is election protection, alternate media, and Solartopia. And this has been a phenomenal 2 hours, as always. We still have 60 people with us. It's fantastic. We have the longest attention span of any Zoom call in the world, certainly in the United States. Let's hope to God by next week we don't have that insane war. And do look, I'll post it next week. Do look for that video of the woman, Susie Johnson, I think is her name. I think that's why we went to war. It's one of the most devastating videos I've ever seen. This woman talking about being sexually abused when she was 13. Give me a break. All right, everybody, you're a phenomenal group. MYLA?
Can I just add to that the interviews that were done, there were actually 4 interviews of this person when she was younger, or talking about what had happened to her with Trump when she was younger. And one of the things that has been ignored is that she spoke about how both Trump and Epstein were engaging in blackmail. And that's something that's been ignored. And that 301, that interview where she talked about how Trump and Epstein were blackmailing important people, was conducted, that interview was conducted 3 days before Epstein was found dead in his jail cell.
Right, and now we have a war going on, which is just unconscionable, and it has to end. God help us, and we have to preserve our democracy. And that's what we're going to be talking. We are not Democrat or Republican on these calls. We are small d Democrats. We believe in democracy. And next week, Ace, I hope you'll join us. Ace, it's great to see you. Anna Georgie, thank you so much. Kevin Camps, you're a great, great hero. It's really an honor to have you on with us. We'll see you next week, and we will talk about the trifecta of 2026. Another fantastic call. Next week will be 360, right? 260, and we will be back at the Green Grassroots Emergency Election Protection Coalition, and it won't be daylight savings, so we'll have our wits about us. Thank you, Steve Caruso. Next week, thank you, Mike Hirsch. We'll see you all. No nukes, everybody, and we'll see you in Solartopia. Thank you.
Thank you, MYLA RESON.
Thank you, MYLA RESON.
And thank you, Sonny.
Hey.